G'day viewers, my name's Graeme Stevenson and I'd like to invite you to come on a journey of creativity and learning and adventure through the series Colour in Your Life. There's an artist in every family throughout the world, and lots of times there's an artist deep down inside all of us as well. So grab your kids, your brothers, your sisters, your aunties, uncles and mums and dads and come and see how some of the best artists in Australia do what they do. We're in the beautiful city of Sydney this show to see an amazing artist, so come along and enjoy the incredible talent that Sydney has to offer. Well, g'day viewers and welcome back to Colour in Your Life. We are at the studio of a young lady called Meredith Woolnough. Meredith, thank you for being on the show.
Happy to be here.
Great to be here. As you can see in the background here, there are some amazing, I call them material sculptures. That's the way that I would describe them. But Meredith actually works in textiles and is quite extraordinary with what she does with them. Also has a bachelor's degree with first class honours in arts, which is pretty cool. So she's got letters behind her name, by the way. And also you're a master of teaching as well. So you're not only talented, good looking, but you're smart as well.
Oh, you're going to make me blush, Graeme.
That's okay. But what we're going to do is we're going to spend the day with Meredith on how she actually puts these structures together. And she does it on a sewing machine and uses materials and thread and actually uses materials that actually dissolve. Just describe to me how this all goes about.
Okay. So the fabric that I work on is this stuff. Obviously, this is a lot of it. It's a water-soluble fabric.
Yep.
It was originally invented by the medical industry.
Okay.
They used it as the bags that they would wash their surgical equipment in. So when they had contaminated implements, it would go inside these bags and sent off to be sanitised, and then the bags would just dissolve and no one would have to touch the waste.
Yeah.
Like all good inventions, it comes from the military or the medical industry.
Yeah.
But then obviously this had lots of other applications. So now it's been pushed out into in the textiles world, and it's sold in sewing shops as a basic stabiliser. But then I'm using it as basically my base fabric. So I don't embroider onto cloth. This is my cloth, and then it's later removed.
It's amazing. I can see by the influence of a lot of your work, you're obviously very much into nature, but like me, funnily enough, very much into the mathematics of nature as well.
Yeah, well, I don't pretend to be good at maths, art and maths, water and oil, but I think it's naturally intrinsically involved in all of us, and obviously it's so big in nature. We were talking earlier about the golden mean and the Fibonacci sequences, and they come up in things like the Nautiluses without even trying, and that's definitely part of it. I don't know if it's a conscious decision or not.
It's wonderful, but you've obviously developed, you said that this isn't something that's yours, but I think that you've developed this to an extent. As we go through and we screen up a lot more of Meredith's work as we go along. I have never seen, when I first saw Meredith's work, I just was absolutely astounded because it really is art and sculpture and material, and it's difficult to describe. It doesn't really fit into a genre by any means. It's something that you've really come up with yourself.
It's hard to classify. I think any work or artwork that's based in textiles, it's really easy to put into that textiles or craft bracket rather than art. But textiles is a fabulous medium. It's used in so many things, and I think it's really exciting. And maybe it's exciting because it's not seen that much in the broader art world.
It's amazing, and as I said, you've got, you dive, you go swimming, and you look at this stuff under the water. You've got this absolutely fabulous. And if you look around Meredith's studio, there's little bits and pieces of animals and shells and sponges. There's stuff everywhere, which is just great. But we're going to go through the process today. You're going to show us how you do one of these. Really, it's only a small one.
It takes a long time to do.
And and as you said before, you're fairly limited by the size that you can actually create because of the sewing machine too. But a lot of these, as you can see, they're quite three-dimensional in their aspects. But and she uses all sorts of different things to create these. But let's start from the beginning and tell us how you go about actually putting one of these together, and then we're going to go through the process of how Meredith does this today.
Okay. Okay, so to start off, I've got my water-soluble fabric.
Yeah.
It's normally a lot neater rolled than this.
And where would you buy this from?
I buy this in bulk,
Yeah.
so buy tens of metres at a time, and I also buy a really long length of it. But you can get this just from a sewing shop.
Oh, okay.
Generally in smaller, more manageable sizes. People use it for lace making and
Yeah.
things like that.
Okay.
So that's where it came from.
Yeah.
So this is just a standard embroidery hoop. You need a hoop because otherwise it's just going to get chewed up by the machine
Yeah.
when you sew. You need to keep it nice and tight. So I stretch this out as best I can.
Okay.
It's like a lightweight interfacing, if anyone's familiar with that. And if I feel any sort of spongy bits, I'll just give it an extra tug.
Through, okay.
If you tug too much, it will tear. Like, it'll tear
Oh, okay.
quite easily.
Yeah.
And if it breaks, well, you deal with that when you...
Yeah, I think you've got enough there just to sort of go back and do it again.
Yeah, we can make mistakes.
What the hell? Yeah.
So that's going to be what we can work on. So make sure this is not wrinkled or anything like
Yeah.
that. And I can draw into this. You've got to be very careful what you draw with.
Yes.
Some pens will dissolve the fabric because they're very
okay,
wet.
Okay.
And you want to draw lightly, but you've got to be careful because if you do draw onto this, when you dissolve it, it might come across onto your work. So
Okay. So what?
Experiment.
And you've got to tighten it there. So do you tighten that up at all?
if it needs it, it's pretty snug.
Oh, okay.
But as if I'm sewing a big piece with many sections,
Yeah.
the piece will become thicker because
Yeah.
it's got the embroidery on it, and I might need to adjust it.
So what type of pen do you use to do this then?
I
And who makes it and what's it all about?
I just use a basic outline pen.
Oh, okay.
So, they're pretty good, just a basic felt tip because they're not very wet,
Yeah.
and they're very fine. So I can just very lightly draw on it,
Yeah.
and it's not going to soak through too much.
As far as your designs are concerned, I know the working off nature, things like Mandelbrot's fractals and, but we won't go into the mathematics about it, but it is quite fascinating. But a lot of this is just freehand. Do you do stencils at all?
Occasionally, I'll sometimes draw up things. So, I will draw up.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Sorry, draw up big designs. So, for example, the
wow.
leaf.
Okay.
I've drawn it up first.
Oh wow! Look at that.
And
fabulous.
planned from then. There's my Nautilus.
Okay. Okay.
So I can sort of figure that out. So, I do sketch things, and I do keep sketchbooks of ideas and things like that. It's what you've got to do.
Another point as being as well, how do you get that if you've got the stencil onto this? What do you do to get it on there? How would it work?
You can see through it.
Oh, there you
so
go.
you can just trace it straight on.
That was easy, wasn't it? So,
We like the easy things.
from there, what are we going to draw onto this one, or have you got one ready?
Well, we could draw straight onto this, or I've
Okay.
got one where I have drawn it up already.
Cool. Okay.
So just to save time,
Sure.
I've just drawn up a basic coral design. It probably doesn't look like very much at the moment. This is one that I've just sketched up just to make it easier. So this is just using the pen, just an outline pen. It's just a basic coral design that I've just drawn from my head, obviously to fit this space.
Sure.
For today, I'm going to be limited by the shape of my hoop,
Yeah.
and help that to influence the design.
So we are going to sew. That's the best way to put it. And you use different. Is it polyester threads that you use?
Yeah, use a polyester.
And also, I was quite surprised when you brought this out. It's a little bit like a colour chart for thread, isn't it?
Yeah, it's lots of fun.
But it's amazing. It's just it's a beautiful chart on its own. But you can see all the lustres in the threads themselves.
Yeah, they're good. The polyester is obviously a very strong fibre, and
Yeah.
you need something that's going to be strong. You also, for longevity, need something that's going to be colour fast and
Yeah.
not going to degrade like a natural fibre would over time. Polyester's not going anywhere.
Okay. And the sewing machine. What type of sewing machine do you use, and why are you using that sewing machine?
I use a Benina.
Okay.
It's basically the best brand for your basic home style machines before you move on to industrial machines.
Mm-hmm.
All the parts are metal. It lasts a long time, and it's smooth
Mm-hmm.
when it sews, which is really important for me because I run the machine very hard and fast.
And the one thing that you obviously do need to do with this would be to make sure that those threads are quite bound together.
Yeah, it's really important because if you can imagine, I'm not using a base fabric at all. The base fabric's going to disappear. So if all my stitches aren't linked together, when I dissolve it, the whole thing's going to fall apart. It's just going to turn back into threads.
Okay.
So you've got to make sure that everything's connected and there's no holes and
Okay.
all that sort of stuff.
So has that actually happened to you before?
Occasionally, or
Yeah.
occasionally I'll forget to go back over a piece and I'll dissolve it, and then I'll realise there's a bit that I haven't done,
Yeah.
or you learn from your mistakes though.
Okay, well, from there we're going to go, you've already sketched one up. We'll go to the sewing machine and actually see how this is done.
Cool.
Sounds cool.
I've just got it set up. I've actually got different colours on the top and the bottom.
Oh, okay.
The reason for that is, you know, these are basically my paints, but you know, they only come in one colour. So if I want to have variations, I can blend them together when I sew.
Okay.
So I've got it just set up in a way so it's just the needle going up and down. It's not on anything fancy or anything like that. I'm drawing with this machine.
Oh, okay.
So as we know, we've got it all stretched up. I always bring my threads up to the top because these threads will get all knotted if you don't.
And do you keep holding those threads at all, or you let them go?
No, what I'll do is I'll just sew a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I'll snip them off.
Okay.
And then they're out of the way.
Oh, okay.
I'll just start drawing. It might get a bit noisy.
It's okay, fire away.
I'll only do a little bit so you can see.
Well, as you can see, Meredith has only just partially completed this section, and it's just amazing how she follows the little red lines and gets all the pattern done. But because of the beauty of TV and that this young lady is incredibly well prepared, what Meredith has done for us is, because it takes quite a while to do this, at least a day or so's work to actually sew that like that. But what she's done for us is that she's actually prepared one. And as you can see, completely finished, cut out of the frame itself. Now, there's a really special technique that happens now, which I've never seen before, which I think is going to be quite fascinating. You get rid of this material, don't you?
Yeah, it's actually very, very easy.
So tell us how that's done.
Basically, I would normally do this under running water, but so we don't have to shoot in the bathroom, I figured this would be much more TV friendly.
Okay.
So it needs to be warm water, so I've just boiled the jug and I'll get that quite warm.
Okay.
So basically it'll be there and then it won't be there. So I'll just put it in a little bit and you can see straight away it just kind of disappears. It turns into like a gooey, gluey substance. So I'll just kind of move this about in here.
That's amazing.
If I don't wash it out enough, there will be a little bit of like residue fabric there, but I don't want to wash it out completely because it actually kind of turns into a bit of a stiffening glue.
Okay.
That will give it a bit of shape.
That's just amazing, it just disappeared that quickly.
Yeah, it's just gone. Here 1 minute, gone the next. Now as you can see, I'm not particularly gentle with them.
Yeah.
And now this is quite wet. There's a bit of colour that's come out, but that's not from the thread, that's just from the pen that I used to draw it with.
Okay.
So now all I do, I just use some just baking paper.
Yeah.
So that I don't make a huge mess of the bench. And I'll just lay this down and basically blot off the excess water. So once I'm happy with what I've taken off, some pieces I'll let to go really sculptural, and you know, I'll sometimes even crunch them up to give them some extra shape. This piece though, because it's wanting to curl and I want it to be quite a defined shape to begin with, I'll actually press it flat, and to do that I'll just double layer my paper towel, my greaseproof paper, sorry. I'll make sure it's all nice and flat as best I can. Thanks. This bit's a little bit fiddly. If it's a really fine design,
Yeah.
it just wants to do its own thing.
So do you want me to hold that there?
Yeah,
Sure.
that'd be good.
Just put that down.
It's really annoying once you press something and then you find one bit that's folded over and it doesn't like to be wet again once it's dissolved.
Okay.
So once that's done, my very high-tech pressing implement a big heavy book.
Michelangelo.
Yes, very inspirational. I just sort of pop that on and press that.
Okay, from there we're going to go to the mounting process, and you've already got one that's huge. It's enormous. It's a beautiful leaf.
Yeah, so this is, I'm really kind of fascinated with the leaves and the internal structures of leaves at the moment. Yeah. So I've done a slightly larger one today, and I really quite like this when it's floppy.
Yeah.
But you know, we need to mount it. So I've just prepared this board. It's just Fabriano paper stuck to foam core to give it some stability. And once I figure out which way I want it, which I could spend hours doing, it's just a matter of mounting it on. Now, when it's flat, it kind of loses a lot of its whatever makes it special. So I always like to mount them so it's off a bit. I just use standard pins. These are just rustless pins, rustless so that they'll last for a very long time. I need my pliers, I need my thimble. And now, basically, these pins, I'm just going to push through at places where I know it's going to be needed to be lifted up. So once I'm happy with however many I've got, I'll go around and push each one down so that they're flush and tightly pressed in.
And you've really got to, I'd say, have quite clean hands because they're so refined, and everything you do is so precise.
Yeah, I've found I can't wear nail polish. If I do, I'll get little colourful blobs on the paper.
Yeah.
And you've got to be really careful with the paper. It'll pick up every little oil from your hand. So now I need to basically push them all up again, and I just gently...
Oh, just push. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, and it'll just sort of pop up.
How about that? And there it is, just floating.
Yeah.
It's just magnificent.
Now it's not going to stay there on its own. Eventually, you know, it might sag. So I space them out, and I've just got my little container of, these are just like little glass rods.
All right.
Like beads.
Yes.
So with these, what I'm going to do is I'm now going to pull all of these out. I'm going to unwind about half the leaf.
I was going to say you wouldn't do it all because it would just sort of tend to flop, wouldn't it?
Yeah. If there's pieces that aren't this dense, I might do one at a time. And then I just sort of go along threading these on to the pins and then poking them back through in exactly the same holes that they were in before.
So you only wanted it just up that high.
Yeah, with this one I'm going to keep it quite close because it's so dense, and I really want the pins and the spaces to not really be noticeable. I just want it to look like it's floating, but not really be aware of it. So I'll do this on one side and then I'll do that with the rest of it.
Okay.
All attached to itself. Okay, so now I've got all my beads in. I'm just going to go and push these down, and just with a pair of pliers, just going to carefully bend the pins around so that they're not poking out.
Okay.
And then once I've bent the pins around, I'll just stick them in place with a little bit of tape.
I'll hold that for you.
Yeah, thanks. Means it won't stab me or my framer.
And it just sort of holds everything into place.
Yeah,
as well,
it'll hold it all into place, and well, you know, that takes a little bit of time, and then after that it's just a process of painting the ends of the pins so that you can't see them.
Just push them down.
Yeah, it's kind of
amazing.
It'll just sit off just enough that in different kinds of light you'll get shadows that get cast. And I sometimes think the shadows are just as important.
But there's another one that you've got here as well that I'd just like to look at, which is the Nautilus shell. And this is just going through, once again, another process. Obviously all those pins have been nailed down.
Yes, they're all out of the way.
But this one, I really love this. Now describe to me how you actually make the Nautilus shell. As you can see, the other varying shadows that come across this. What Meredith has done is actually pinned these in to a shape, But how did you actually get that initial curve in there as well?
With this piece, I basically shaped it around some padding to give it more shape and structure to get that shape pattern. Sometimes I'll say this is just a little piece that I've started playing with. So this is just a ball, and it was started off as a flat piece.
Yes.
Like a net shape.
Yes.
But then when I dissolved it, I moulded it around the ball and let it dry like that. So this one I'll probably just stitch together to make it keep that shape. But with this one, yeah, it had that space, and then instead of using spacers, I've just pinned it directly onto the board this time.
And you also do your work in resin as well.
Yeah.
So can we unfortunately we didn't have time to do that today,
No.
but let's have a look at what you've got.
Do you want the framework as well?
The framed one, yeah, that'd be great.
Sure.
Bring that one over.
I feel like a game show host.
And then
Um,
and then a couple of your resin pieces.
yeah.
And as you can see, these are just beautiful as well. This is obviously material, but she's embedded it in acrylic resins.
Epoxy, yeah.
Epoxy resins. And you obviously sell these, you do the trade shows, you're in galleries as well, a number of galleries, and you're becoming quite successful, and it's fairly understandable why. The work and the finish that Meredith puts in, she's an extremely meticulous artist. There's no other way to put it. And I think that they are so well presented and just beautiful, beautiful pieces. Your work is very reasonably priced as well. I think for the amount of effort that you put in, it's just quite amazing. Well, another fabulous day spent with a very, very talented young lady. Meredith, thank you so much for being on the show. It's just been amazing, and I absolutely think that what she does is extraordinary, just calculated, refined. The presentation is just wonderful. You have a website, what would that be?
It's www.meredithwoolnough.com.au.
We will also have Meredith's work on the Colour in Your Life website as our series obviously starts to spread across the planet, which is pretty great. So if you want to come in and see her work as well there, you can go to colorinyourlife.com.au. Some great things coming up. Remember our workshops. If you want to be involved in the Colour in Your Life workshops with all of these talented people, hopefully Meredith will be involved in some of these as we go along as well. Come in and see us in the website and we'll take it from there. But as I always say, remember, make sure you put some colour in your life. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye.
Mm-hmm.